No, we're good to go. Whenever y'all want to
All right.
have some fun talking to each other.
All right. So, welcome to the first inaugural video of Tasty Media Interviews. I'm here with David Alexander, potential sheriff. So we're here talking about policy, and we're gonna go kind of through that. Anything you'd like to talk about yourself, just from the get-go?
Well, I grew up here in Pensacola,
Mm-hmm.
and I attended public schools here, and I'm married. I have 2 children, adult children, that also attended public schools here before going off to college. I've worked 32 years in law enforcement, and I bring to the table a lot of experiences that have actually worked in the community setting. So I'm very excited about the opportunity to serve the entire Escambia County.
So what is special about you? What do you bring to the table that would bring positive change to Escambia County?
Okay, well, first of all, I'm an approachable person.
Mm-hmm.
I have the experience of working out in the diversity that exists in Escambia County and actually reaching out to people in an effort to solve problems in communities.
Mm-hmm.
And that is very important because every community has its own challenges. And of course, you have to be receptive to the idea that there is no cookie cutter approach. In other words, there's no one solution fits every neighborhood.
Right.
So that means you got to be willing to get out in the neighborhoods and talk to people. So my background is very extensive in going into diverse neighborhoods and talking to people and gaining support for change, and then looking at what resources, both inside the agency as well as inside the community, that are available to help us with that change. And most of the time, there's going to be another agency that's probably concerned about that same segment of people that we can partner with.
Right.
So those relationships are powerful, and I'm here today because I am the product of successful relationships between law enforcement and citizens.
Okay, so you would say there's more there's more unity there that you think
Yes,
we could use.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Bring unity to the table.
What's the top priority for change in the ECSO?
Well, the first thing is there's a lack of trust that exists between the community and the Sheriff's Department. And that has been expressed throughout all 5 districts.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want to do immediately is to restore the trust by building professional standards, building the integrity inside the Sheriff's Department, being fair, creating an atmosphere of fairness, and then basically holding people accountable.
Right.
A lot of times complaints may come in, and I want to make sure the public knows that we're going to be transparent and that their complaints are going to be properly reviewed and determined. If there's something wrong, we got to own up to it and we got to deal with it. So I think that's something that's on a high level and is expected by our citizens.
How do you think we go about producing more transparency for the Escambia County Sheriff's Office?
Well, number one, you've got to be willing to be an example of what it means to follow the rules. So that means at the top, I can't say one thing publicly and then go behind closed doors and do something totally opposite.
Right.
Being in law enforcement for 32 years, some people say that's impossible. No, it is possible. You need to learn how to be truthful. And certainly there are going to be things that you cannot say publicly because it puts people, places, and probably things in jeopardy of damage, or there are certain laws that protect such things as medical history and stuff like that. So there are certain things you can't say publicly, but they at least acknowledge it. I can't tell you that.
Right.
And even like when you have a hot scene, you can't go out here and tell everything about that scene, but you assure the public when you can make a full disclosure of what your investigation has yielded, and you'll be willing to do that.
Mm-hmm. So it's a balancing act.
It's balancing it.
Where would you like to see the Escambia County Sheriff's Office in about a year? What's something that you would love to, set a goal and achieve?
Well, one of the things I'd like to do going in is increase the level of accountability, put some internal controls in place so that every day it's an atmosphere of professionalism, and that officers are going to be motivated to go out and do their job, and they're going to start to see the receptiveness of the community. And a year down the road, I would love to see our our agency having been evaluated and assessed to determine what the strengths and the weaknesses are and where we can make our improvements structure-wise, and then let that structure and the design of the agency be a driving force to how we bring that top quality professional level police services that I think the Escambia County citizens deserve.
Well, defund the police is kind of being spread around nationwide. It's a topic of discussion. How do we make a compromise with the people saying that, or how do you deal with that question, and how do we build trust within that community? What's kind of your view and take on how we deal with that together?
Yes. Well, one of the things about defunding, it's a very dangerous word because it means different things to different people.
Right.
But I think for the record, I think we need to be very careful if we're talking about getting rid of police, because that just leads to a very disastrous end. But what would I do is, number one, that assessment that we need to have about how our operations are carried out for the entire Escambia County, and then look at some of the threats. We have some challenges, and we have an opioid epidemic, which adds a whole new equation to the war against drugs, if you want to call it that. So you can't look at drugs the way you've traditionally looked at drugs.
Right.
Looking at the legalization of marijuana and the medical use of marijuana is changing the dynamics of the drug enforcement perspective, and you got to look at ways now that you can not get tied up on just sometimes what we could call frivolous arrests that could pack your jails up with and take away space that you can use for more serious offenses.
Right.
And then, of course, with COVID-19, we're sitting in here with masks. That is changing the corrections environment. So we have to look at arresting and what are we going to spend those dollars that we're going to have to spend incarcerating people, how we're going to do that, and what's going to be best for our community. Because when we're overcrowded, the taxpayers pay for every day that we're overcrowded. And of course, with this pandemic, we don't know how that's going to play out in the months and years to come. And we haven't seen a total assessment of the damage already incurred. So that means the sheriff is going to have to be forward thinking. He's going to have to be open-minded as to where we may need to make some adjustments. And that's where professionals that come in and evaluate these types of situations are going to be used to come up with a total assessment of our sheriff department and potentially the jail, determine how we can best do that. So in a sense, that falls under the category of defunding. Okay, so that means you might reprioritize, redirect some funds, and even with but our budget is approved by the Board of County Commissioners. So if there's a need for more money in certain areas, you might not just go look to take it away from something you already have, because most of the time police agencies are really strapped for every dollar that they get.
Right. So we have to be very.
Got to be balanced in that approach. You got to be tactful, strategic, and make sure you're not taking away something you're going to call later on and demand it, and it's not there.
Right. According to a P&J report, in a 2017 P&J report, 1 out of every 4 kids are growing up in Escambia County in poverty. Where's the sheriff's office role in that, and how do they help fix this problem, and how do we help bring? Where's the sheriff's office supposed to stand with bringing these people out of poverty and helping the community?
Well, one of the things that by providing fair and impartial policing, it will also give opportunities for children, because you mentioned 1/4 of the children of Escambia County. It will give children a realistic opportunity to dream a better future. And there are initiatives that include the officers and law enforcement in bringing children out of poverty. Achieve Escambia is an organization I've been involved with since its inception, and their strategy is to take a child from the cradle to a career. And one of the mitigating factors in there is arrest. Not only arrest for juveniles, but even as an adult. Arrest can interfere with that goal to get this child successfully to a career. So we're going to have to look at things like the juvenile justice system and how it affects us on a local level and how can we better partner between DJJ and the Escambia County Sheriff Department to hopefully intercept some of these children and give them a brighter perspective on life. And also, and that's where sometimes just an officer presenting that professional image and being receptive to talking to children in the schools, because we do have officers in the schools, and when the officers understand that they're in a leadership role, they could actually inspire a young person to go on to bigger and better things coming out of an impoverished condition.
Mm-hmm.
And again, my experience tells me this has happened. This has happened time and time again. So it's not that it can't work. It can work if you have people with the right mindset.
So you're saying, because I've heard, across the country, people are like officers in schools and whatnot has a negative connotation, but it seems like what you want to do is kind of rebrand that, turn it into a positive
Absolutely,
thing, right?
absolutely. By rebranding the school and police partnership, what you do is now they're back in the school as their friend and an advocate. And yes, if something goes wrong, they're going to show you, I'm your friend and your advocate, but also when you step across the line or you're in danger, I'm a law enforcement officer.
Right.
Because they are real people, they have families, they have students as well. So, and that's why I mentioned about me being a father of two that grew up in the school system. So I had a chance to image professionalism to their friends as well. And that can be done successfully, and it has proven to been done over the years. So I know it can work.
Okay. We now have a medical marijuana license in the state of Florida. Across the country, there's some states that are legal. That drug is becoming more and more normalized, but yet our local sheriff's office still prioritizes those drug offenses. How do we refocus, or how do we change our current system to kind of adapt with the times, I guess?
Well, and there are some that would like to think that the biggest problem in Escambia County is drugs, but the biggest problem in Escambia County is equal opportunity and access to employment, housing, and sustainable income. And when you are missing those key issues, those key factors in life, it can lead to crime. So the thing about marijuana is that while it is in the process of being completely legalized, we still have to investigate drug-related crimes. But the thing about it is you can't not arrest your way out of a problem such as drugs. So you got to look at drugs differently. You got to look at especially misdemeanor level drug arrests. There are things like civil citation notices to appear that can be given, but to right off the bat, everything is because of drugs. It's very misleading and it's very inaccurate. I believe we need to become more involved with other agencies that deal with people and are also dealing with this problem about drugs, mental health, and poverty.
Right. Okay. A lot we've talked about building that relationship, and I guess my final question is, to be frank, the relationship between everyday citizens and the police is probably at an all-time low, at least in my lifetime. How will you, if elected, try to rebuild that and try to actually strengthen those bonds between citizens and the sheriff and the police?
Well, first of all, as a sheriff, I want to be approachable. I want to be accessible. I'm out. My campaign strategy is boots on the ground, getting out and talking to people. Needs that I'm talking to you now.
Right.
We're respecting the social distancing. We're doing the masking and taking the precautionary measures. But I still take the opportunity to have that conversation with people because it validates your platform for running. It also keeps you connected to what the real problems are in certain areas of town. And you're not just being misled by statistical data, which sometimes can be misleading. And you can have someone that talks louder, so they're talking for people who haven't said or felt the way that this person is talking.
Right.
So, but you've got to have an agency that's willing to reach out and to connect to their community. And that's the type of leader I am. That's the success of my career. And I've worked for 5 different chiefs in my career. And I have been very heavily dependent upon to deal with a lot of those difficult situations. It goes all the way back to my early years as a captain. So my record speaks for itself. I have been in the trenches. I've gotten my hands dirty, and I really believe that when you spend more time having a positive interaction with the profession of people, it changes your outlook.
Right.
And I think that's what we need right now. I think we need people to know, we need officers to know that the community is not totally against them. And I think we need the community to know that it is not a war on citizens in our community. And I'm talking about everybody, because this community is made up of so many different groups of ethnicities. And I'm just saying, it's got to be mutual respect, you know. It's got to be mutual respect all the way around. And I would love to see our agency reflect the diversity that's in our community, so that we can deal with things that are wrong because it's wrong, and not deal with things because there's a perception or a realistic bias that's already built into the system.
Okay. So I guess just final closing remarks. I know the sheriff's voting is coming up soon. Would you like to remind everyone when that is?
Yes, that will be November the 3rd. That's the general election. And I'm going to tell you, Escambia County is no different from any other community in the United States. I think people have said they want change, they want reforms, they want to see some things happen in agencies now that's inclusive, that's going to make especially our younger generation, feel like they're safe and that they're not at risk of being hurt or killed because they come in contact with law enforcement. I'm here to say that even with the mask on, I'm the face that the community wants to see change come through. So when you want to see change, you're looking at it. I will bring change. I will bring reforms. But it's going to take people getting out and voting. So if you're angry and frustrated, confused, let that drive you to the polls on November the 3rd and vote for David Alexander as your next sheriff. You're going to find out you're among probably 100,000 people that wants the same thing.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
Yes, sir. It was
And
great.
certainly anytime you can come back, we can talk again.
All right, we'll do. I might take you up on that offer.
No problem. No
All right.
problem at all.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right.